Hi everyone, and welcome to the second session of this year's Pentaward Spring Festival. My name is Jennifer Clements and I'm the Pentaward's Marketing Manager. I'm really looking forward to this next session, which is brought to us by Laura Amaral from Bendito Design, who are based in Brazil. Her session will explore how designers can reignite our senses following years of restrictions. Just a quick reminder that if you have any comments or any questions for Laura, just pop them in the chat. Welcome, Laura, and over to you. Good luck.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Hi, everyone. And I'm happy to share with you some of my insights. I'm going to share my screen. So let's see if it's going to work. Here we go. Well, before I start, I'd like to point out the importance of Pentaward's work in seeking greater representation by giving the opportunity for people from all over the world to bring their points of view and show their design as a large global packaging design community. So it's, I think it's beautiful, it's touching, and it's fun. So congratulations, Jen, Adam, and the entire Pentaward's team for this incredible effort to bring cultures together.
Thank you so much, Laura.
No, I represent an independent studio in Brazil, managed by 3 women, all mothers, with 20 years of experience in brand and packaging design. The studio has this curious name, Bendito. Bendito means blessed in Portuguese, and it's an expression that Brazilians use when referring to something that happened fortunately and almost magically. The initial idea of this talk was to reflect on the Brazilian way of designing and its relationship with the senses. When we look at our portfolio, we see a pattern of vibration, color, and positivity that does not necessarily refer to something local, but to a culture of optimism. But our plans to talk about this optimism have changed with the recent events in the world. The war, although geographically far from Brazil, has had a profound impact on us because it connects us with feelings like we usually seek to escape, smother, or keep to ourselves. Feelings such as sadness, weakness, anxiety, disappointment, tiredness, horror. And that made us look inside and understand that maybe there is something we should talk about before designing post-pandemic solutions. So due to the pandemic, in the last 2 years, in one way or another, we all have suffered similar pains, losses, fears. Some people say we are living a post-traumatic experience. And there is one thing worse than trauma, which is denying its existence. Each country and each person suffered differently the burden of COVID-19. In Brazil, the racial segregation, the economic and cultural inequality, as well as racism, domestic violence, and disinformation were enhanced. That generated a great feeling of helplessness. And I imagine that in your countries, it wasn't that different, right? If not, at least one thing we had in common. Who doesn't remember the empty supermarket shelves, rid of items like toilet paper and liquor? What is that thing about toilet paper anyway? I guess we'll never find out. Last week, while the indoor mask mandate was lifted in some cities of Brazil, including mine, other cities around the world are in lockdown and following safety measures, which leaves our expectations for the future clouded. We don't know what will happen. So if we are going to talk about 5 senses and emotional connections, maybe we must talk about how are we feeling right now. So how are you really? My goal today is not to bring answers, and I wish I had them, but to share some issues that are concerning our team and other Brazilian design studios that we have been in touch. Maybe we could raise a discussion on this topic in a global context. I brought you today a personal experience. This is a poster made by one of my daughters at the beginning of the pandemic. She was 7 years old at the time. Imagine working at home with 3 children homeschooling at the same time. I was struggling for some privacy and quietness. So I had to set my office in my own bedroom, and I kept the door locked most of the time. She then created 3 posters that were taped to my bedroom door to let her know when she could or could not talk to me. She had this idea of doing a traffic light. The first sign in red reads, "Not now, please." I'm the one on the left and she's on the right, outside the bedroom. The second, yellow, says emergency only. And the third was finally the green light. Come in. Now notice her happiness on the right side. And now take a look at my expression. That's how she saw me, exhausted. And that's probably just part of how I was. I was languishing, as Adam Grant defined it. The problem with languishing is that it is a silent process. It's not depression, although it could turn into it. It's sometimes something that we don't know how to name, and it is the absence of well-being. And suddenly you have difficulty sleeping, concentrating, surrendering, perceiving the world. Languishing is an empty state. But why talk about it at an event like this, right? Because we are all creatives, and our emotional state affects how we think, how we feel, how we act. And let's not forget that we have deadlines and we also have to pay the bills, right? Sometimes I feel like in some way we are not allowed to fail because our failure may cost millions in sales. Our natural state of work is under pressure. Tom and David Kelly say that creative confidence is like a muscle. It can be straightened and nurtured through effort and experience, but muscles also inflame, tense, and lock. And for them to work again, they need treatment. To be creative, we need to be in a state of flow, right? And to get into a state of flow, we need to be emotionally predisposed to it. A poll carried out by Ipsos Institute about who felt the most loneliness in the pandemic revealed that 13 countries were above the world average. Between them, Brazil, Great Britain, United States, India, South Korea, and South Africa, just to name a few. While the world has mobilized to find a solution to the virus, we have to deal with this post-traumatic legacy. Now, imagine creating emotional connections with people in a post-traumatic state. Now, imagine people in this state designing solutions. Ponty, a master of perception, once said, "The thinker always thinks from what he is. The world is what we perceive." So how are brands perceiving this moment in history? What do they gather and what do they return to people? We know that emotional health is becoming a big deal this year, right? Brands and organizations are given space for better practices, support, and acceptance. And when it comes to packaging, in January of this year, our team released a report identifying emerging aesthetics of 2021. The report is a result What catches my attention in this report is the presence of aesthetics connected to escape and cure. Aesthetics that take us away from the real plane, if there is such a thing, and take us to a magical world, a place we would like to be in. I selected some of them to show you today. One of the emergent behaviors that we are seeing is resumption. This is a very interesting ethos because it brings a narrative connected to the future, such as better days, and also a narrative connected to the past, which we called back in time. Nothing doing with present, only future and past. Better days is about enjoyment, hope, euphoria, optimism. And one of the design ideas connected to it is dopamine. Dopamine seems to be the perfect medicine for languishing. It's about vibration, energy, explosion of color, patterns, and overlays. On the other hand of resumption, we have these nostalgic signals, dusty and saturated colors, a bit of psychedelia, high spirits, and also a design idea we called playful retro. Playful retro shows a little bit of fun, cartoon style, some flat and long shadows, and also a touch of innocence, always in a good mood. The ethos of transcendence also seems very suitable for what we are talking about here. Narratives such as healing, youth creators, or new romantics are different ways to talk about emotions, spirituality, and self-care. We can see aesthetics like holistics and fantasy, strongly connected to Gen Z, especially the young mystic. So we get lots of gradient and an hegemony of lilacs, purple, pink, and also a special presence of glow, as you can see. Still talking about transcendence, we have distortion, which is a subversion of senses towards a surreal experience. Here we have liquid typography, unconventional shapes, everything that goes out of reality. On digital ethos, we can find design ideas connected to interactive worlds like metaverse, or what we name it dynamic, being this come alive design with a lot of movement, fluidness, and changing identities. And in the ESG ethos, there are lots of designs ideas connected to rethink and renew. I won't have time to show you everything today, but you can find the full report on our Instagram bio if you want. The point is that all these aesthetics are part of a new paradigm of time, regeneration. The concept does not serve only to attend to our demands towards environment or the way we consume, but to all living scopes of humanity, right? Regeneration seems like a different concept than the Great Reset, a term raised in 2020 by the World Economic Forum. For me, in some ways, the term reset seems simpler than regeneration. Sometimes to reset something, all you need is a button. But regenerating is something that takes time. It's a process. So is the creative industry embracing this process? Is our job to bring optimism, to say everything will be fine, to make things lighter, or should we promote a discussion? Is our business about resetting or regenerating? Let's think about us as designers who seek to perceive human motivations and to bring innovative and creative solutions. We are creators and consumers, right? There is no bubble protecting us. Just because we study behavior and its movements doesn't mean that we are safe from its effects. So how much of our emotional experiences go straight to our creative work? Pretty much, I think. In remote work, how many of us have noticed a different behavior from a coworker? They are quieter, don't have a glow in their eyes, always with the camera off, or maybe they're angrier, skeptical, impatient, aggressive. And there are those who begin to present a series of small domestic accidents. What do we do about it? We think, well, someone needs to talk to them, or maybe they had a bad night's sleep, or this will pass. And how many times we are this coworker? We expect people to respect our space, and we try to respect each other's space. But you see, respecting space is one thing, pretending not to see it is another. But let's say we are not seeing it all. We lost the richness of our outside perception field. For most of us, it got reduced into this screen, right? Senses are our surviving toolkits. They have always been. They are connected directly to our nervous system. So when something changes outside, we may expect some changes inside. Let's think about hearing. There are different sound projects that were developed during pandemic. My favorite one is this one, Stay Home Sounds from citiesandmemory.com. People from all over the world could send their stories and sounds from their lockdown experience. And when I first navigated on the project, I noticed how nature became a protagonist of our listening lives. I tried to bring you today some noises, nature noises here. I'm not sure if it will work, but let's try. I don't know if you can hear it, but those are birds in Oxford. And I have the gardens and I storm in a lockdown. You can navigate later. We probably became more sensitive to sounds. Raise your hand if you tried to go back to the office and it felt noisy and disturbing. I had this experience, yeah. You could not concentrate, think, or simply do your job. So you went back to your home office, right? Some of you may have heard the term sensory revolution. Mark Smith, one of the most esteemed sensory historians, believes that the pandemic had a profound and quick effect in the way we perceive the world. And because of that, we are going through the biggest shift in sensory experience since human history began. What if isolation on some level numbed our perceptive ability? Let's think about touching, for example. Could it be that 2 years of social distancing has anesthetized us? Since we were restricted to new experiences, new memories, textures, hugs, kisses, does that also influence our emotional state? Touch has a huge impact on our psychological and physical well-being, says Professor Robin Dunbar, an evolutionary psychologist at the University of Oxford. The touch test, the world's largest study of touch, showed that the 3 most common words used to describe touch were comforting, warm, and love. Did the lack of comforting, warm, and love affected our creative process? Well, probably not only that, but many other things related to our senses. There is a great source of knowledge and inspiration for rethinking the senses nowadays, which is this beautiful project called the Pandemic Sensory Archive, or the Archive of Intimacy. I don't know if you know this project, but it's great. The project aims to explore bodies and senses in light of experience of the pandemic. Dr. William Tullett from UK and Dr. Hannah McCann from Australia wanted to archive the sensory revolution we are going through by asking, how has it felt for you? So they believe that in the future, we will not simply return to the pre-pandemic sensory normal. Is it really possible that our ability to perceive is obstruct? And if it is, what should we do about it? National Geographic published an article presenting a series of studies with people who contract COVID. It warns of a deterioration of all the senses and not just smell and taste, some even irreversible. In the case of smell, for example, doctors reinforce the importance of creating new brain connections, exposing the olfactory system to different odorants one at a time to help people regain their senses of smell. It's like a physiotherapy of senses. So I asked myself, can design take on this role? Can design regenerate emotions? Can design regenerate senses? Can design awake desire? Should we go for an explosion of stimuli or for a subtle drop of stimulus present in the details? Should we start with our teams, with ourselves? Are we making room for these feelings to circulate within our studios? Are we alert to the signals? Are we listening? It is not easy to listen. It's like holding a hot potato in your hand and wanting to drop it as quickly as possible. It's having to deal with your own problems. Usually when we listen to people who seem to be going through difficulties, we focus on solving the problem, right? Or sometimes we say, if I were you, I would, or we try to make them feel better by telling everything's gonna be all right, don't worry. But listening is being present, just that. It's asking, do you have a moment? How are things? How are you feeling? If you need to talk, you can count on me. This has long since ceased to be just an HR role. If care is not in the company's culture, it is unlikely that specific measures taken to nurture the psychological safety of employees will work. And we have seen a lot of this right now. We are what we repeat. A culture is built by practice, by what is repeated and absorbed. Maybe it's time for us to work on an ethic of care. Because one thing we learned is that caring is contagious. Caring is not just a role for leadership. It begins in it, but it spreads to the team, sort of like a net. I still haven't found any other way to restore our emotional state than through an honest talk. So let's talk. That's what I have for you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was a really, really brilliant presentation. I also want to say thank you as well for sharing your own personal perspective of what you and your daughter went through during the pandemic. So yeah, thank you for that. We actually have a couple of questions around also your personal experiences with that and within the agency too. So one question is, which of your senses do you think has been the most affected by the pandemic?
I think it's touching. I think it's the most affected sense, because we need touch. Brazilians especially are very used to touch, are very used to hug. There is a particular story which I find very, very funny, that my partner Chita, when she did her first communication with Penta Awards, she ended the message saying a big hug.
Oh.
And I said, you can't send a big hug to a British person, and it's not well. This is not working. And she felt badly when I criticized her. But this is how we are. You know, this is we are very warm. We are very we like affection, and I think in a way everyone in the world needs touch. So probably this is the most affected sense.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same for me personally as well. And we're even just saying, you know, some of us still are too wary of hugging older relatives as well still. So, you know, I think that's something that will still be around for a little while. And then in terms of the agency, how did you manage to, because you're obviously talking about the difficulties with them staying creative during all of this. So what did you do with your teams within the agency to kind of just keep people inspired and feeling creative through this?
Mm-hmm. Well, first we respect their spaces, but we also look at everyone, each one. We are not a lot of people. We are like 21 people in the team, so it's kind of easier to be with each of one at a time. We did lots of practices to bring the team together, even online. On their birthday, we wrote poems. We sent lots of nice things that could warm them, could make them feel more comfortable and cared. I think this is when we have this on the culture. That's what I said before. This is something important because we are like this. We are very, very caring people. So it is not strange when we do something like yoga classes, for example, or we had an art course for everyone the whole year. And also this year we are going to repeat it. We always get together on Mondays and Fridays, everybody. So online, of course, but we do it. So we try to keep together. And I think when the culture has this train, it's easier. You see, we have people coming in the middle of pandemic from London, from Germany to our team, and we managed to put them in that culture, and they are benditos now. So I think that the culture helps, the values, they help a lot. We have 3 values, which are tamo junto, which means we are all together. Arriba, which means that we are growing and we want everyone to grow personally and professionally. And whoa, which is another value that we really like. And it's like a mantra in Bendito. We say, have you done your whoa today? Have you whoa today? So I think that helps.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. And then can you just remind us as well where the trend report that you worked on, that you showed, is available?
It's on our Instagram bio.
Okay, great.
It's at Bendito Design Official.
Okay, great. And then just one final question. So Bendito is an agency created by 3 strong women. Has there been any challenges being a female in the design industry, or anything that you'd like to share? No,
not at all. We think this is like a strength of our studio, because sometimes we feel like we have it's easier for us to see those signs, to run a team, being more sensitive, more caring. So I think it's just a strain. I don't find it, I didn't find any difficulty or challenging about being a woman. I think it's great being a woman.
I agree. And yeah, keep at it. You're doing a great job, and say hi to Tita as well for us. I think that's the rest of the questions for now. So thank you very much, Laura. Our next session is at 3 p.m. GMT with Avelio Matos. Who's going to be exploring the importance of sounds in packaging. And for those of you looking to enter this year's competition, it closes next Friday, so you still have a bit of a window to get in there. Thank you again, Laura, and thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you later.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you
Bye.
all. Bye-bye.